Welcome to Don't Be Caged by Your Age, Deb Krier. I'm so happy you're here to share how you're shattering age related expectations. How are you?
I am hunky dory. I don't say fine. Fine is a four-letter word. So I am hunky dory, which might show my age with that phrase.
We love to age out
Uh-huh.
loud on this
I
podcast. So
know.
please share your age and where you're hailing from.
For a long time, I tried to ignore my age. And when people would say, "Do you qualify for a senior citizen discount?" I was like, "Am I vain or am I cheap?" Now I finally decided I'm cheap, right? So I am 62 years old and I am in good old Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, well, welcome to the show. I'm so happy you're here. You have so much great information to share, but to give everybody a flavor of kind of where you've been and who you are, share a little bit about your background. Share like one story or two that we can go, "Oh, Deb, she's amazing."
I know. Well, I like to be amazing and unique and special and all of those things. Uh, It's one of those where my journey has been lumpy, bumpy, all sorts of things, but a ton of fun. And I think that is the thing that I always want to do is have fun. But my story took a drastic change in 2015 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I know we're going to talk a lot more about that. But it's been an interesting journey. And one of my goals has been how do we help others on that journey,
Right.
especially as we're a little bit more mature?
Well, and also entering your 50s when you
Mhm.
got your diagnosis, so early 50s, you were already grappling
Mhm.
with some of the ageism that's out there,
Right.
the gendered
Mhm.
ageism,
Mhm.
and probably trying navigating your life going, what am I going to do now? And you get hit with a diagnosis, which
Mhm.
will stop you in your
Oh, yeah.
tracks,
Yeah.
and you are
Mhm.
never the same
No,
again.
no.
And what was that like when you got it? Did you find a lump, or were you doing your
Yeah.
annual mammogram,
It
or
was my annual mammogram, and I way back in my youth, I worked for an oncologist and for the American Cancer Society. So I tell people I know just enough to be dangerous, but I'm for since I turned like 20, every year go for your annual checkup. That was just ingrained in me that we did that. I had so the diagnosis that I had was microcalcifications, and they found it on a mammogram,
what is
and
that?
I had to look it up. I had to refer to Doctor Google, and Doctor Google informed me because that wasn't something that whenever I worked for those organizations, that wasn't anything we diagnosed because the computer actually saw it. They are so small. And so I discovered that these are things that are very common in women of a certain age as we mature and the hormones change in our bodies. We just start having these little speckly specks floating around in our body. The vast majority of the time, obviously, there is no problem. But the problem arises when the little buggers start coalescing. And that was what was beginning to happen with me. But the diagnosis was not bad. It was stage 0 because there wasn't a lump, there wasn't a bump, there wasn't
Still
anything.
scary, though. Still
Yeah, oh
scary.
yeah, because that's the pre, right? And so but I met with the breast surgeon. She did a couple more biopsies. Those all came back negative because of course we were trying to hit these little bitty speckly spots. And but then we did do an MRI. We actually had to do 2 because they called and they said, "You wiggled too much. We have to do this again."
Oh, for crying out loud, and
And I was
anybody
like, yeah,
you
and I actually told him, I said, "Okay, clearly this is an issue with me." And so I had to be partially sedated.
thank you.
And
I would have
yeah,
taken that in a heartbeat.
yeah, yeah. And so, but and so it was the left side that we were looking at, and the lymph nodes on that side in the MRI lit up, and then it was concerning. But I also on my left arm had this horrible breakout of poison ivy. And so the thought was, okay, those lymph nodes went danger, danger. But at that point, it was okay, let's go ahead and actually have the surgery, pull some lymph nodes and see what was going on. Nobody was more surprised than my surgeon when 8 of 12 lymph nodes came back positive. So I went from stage 0 to stage 3, kaput, right? I didn't even have an oncologist at this point because nobody was concerned but now I will say, I think I was treated differently than a lot of people our age because I do know the questions to ask. And I don't think my doctor is God. I'm not going to treat them like God, and I'm going to get my questions asked. But I know that that is something that many people have problems with.
I agree 100%,
Mhm.
and having
Yeah.
had lots of medical crises in
Mhm.
my life, I'm
Mhm.
hiring somebody is how
Mhm.
I see it. I go,
Oh, yeah.
"What's your background? Do I
Right.
like you? Are
Mhm.
you're
Mhm.
gonna not only be great, but what
Mhm.
I need?" And I had just a little sidebar
Mhm.
here, a mammogram,
Mhm.
and they were a little concerned about it.
Mhm.
And the doctor
Mhm.
sat with me and she's like, "This is terrible. I don't know." And then she went and told me one horrible death story after
Right.
another of women dying of breast cancer. So, I called the hospital,
You were
HR.
trembling. Yeah, you
When I called the hospital HR and said, "Hey, this doctor needs a
Yeah,
sabbatical." I
needs to
mean,
be done. Mhm.
so listeners, take that from what Deb
Mhm.
is saying.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Be an advocate, bring
Mhm.
someone
Mhm.
with you. If you
Right.
need to find a pushy
Mhm.
broad, find somebody who's out
Mhm.
there, a member of the
Mhm.
PBS squad, the
Mhm.
pushy broad squad, and be a consumer
Yes.
with your
Yeah.
doctor. I
Mhm.
love that advice, Deb.
Right. And a couple things in what you just said, I ended up firing that doctor, and she was good. I mean, there was no malpractice or anything like that. But I found out that I had gone from stage 0 to stage 3 when I got my online report, and that word metastatic jumped out at me. And of course, I knew what that word meant. That
Wait a
meant
minute.
bad,
Wait.
bad, danger, danger.
No
And
phone
so
call.
no
No,
phone call.
here's the
Now I
cell
had an
phone.
appointment scheduled like within the next day or 2. And so I told her, I said, this was not acceptable. And her response was, I don't have any control over that. And I said, oh, yes, you do. And then I had the surgery, had the lymph nodes taken out, and went home with a drain, which is this really funny,
Yeah.
entertaining thing. So it's a tube that they have inserted, and it's got this thing at the end of it that a lot of people refer to as like a little hand grenade, about that size. And it
Yeah.
is draining the icky fluid out of your body that tends to be there when you've had surgery. It might not be that there's anything wrong with it, but you just want that fluid gone. I had no instructions from my surgeon as to what to do with this thing hanging from my body. So again, what do? I go to YouTube. Right?
What do we do? As one
Um,
does to learn how
yeah.
to do
And
anything.
then of course I asked my friends who had had these, and because I was just gonna like somehow figure out how to take it off to shower. And they're like, oh no, 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 no. And so yeah, I figured out what to do. And then when I went back in to have it removed, again, I told her I got no instructions. I had to go to YouTube to figure out what to do. And she told me that's not my responsibility. It's my staff.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, no, it's not. You are in charge.
Right.
And maybe you're not the person handing me or my husband, because I was quasi comatose, is handing me that information. You need to make sure it gets handed to me. I said, because what would have happened if I had taken that drain apart? And she kind of hummed and hawed around. And that was the last time I ever saw her. And
Listeners,
yeah. Mhm.
nobody has time for that
Mhm. Right.
nonsense from a
Right.
doctor.
Well,
There's
and more importantly, how many people would have had a problem? Many would have. They wouldn't have gone to YouTube. They wouldn't have had friends to ask. They would have just thought, what is this thing hanging from my body? Yeah.
a
And there's
one-star
things you have to
Google.
do with it. You have to drain it. You have to do all these things. I had no idea what to do. But she was only one of several doctors that I fired. But the other thing you said is take somebody with you. I love the PBS. Oh my gosh, I have to remember that. Because especially those first appointments when you're being told your diagnosis is, your prognosis is, your percentage is, yada, yada, yada. Of course, the second we heard we had cancer, and I don't care what age you are, our brains went zoot, right?
Exactly.
And so you need to take somebody in with you. They need to have had notes in advance where you have said, here's the stuff I want to ask. They might have their own questions and you can even record it. Now I had one doctor say, "Oh no, you can't do that. That's a HIPAA violation." I said, "No, no. I know these things. It is a HIPAA violation if I record somebody else's,
That's right.
but it is not a HIPAA violation for me to record my own appointment." And I've known that since I worked for the American Cancer Society over 30 years. When we told people this is long before phones, take a recorder, figure out some way to record it. And if the doctor has a problem with that, there is a totally different issue. So yeah, take somebody with you. I love my oncologist. There are signs in every exam room that says, if your questions have not been answered, do not leave this room. And I've
Oh,
been known to call them back in when I've gone, oh, wait, I forgot. And all these things. But we are in charge, nobody else. And that's the thing that we all have to remember. And if your doctor is, or any medical care provider, is not honoring that, then you need to have a chat with them and you possibly need to say, okay, I'm going to somebody else.
Absolutely, and don't get caught up in gender, folks. It's
Hmm.
non-binary when you're
Right.
dealing with a doctor,
Oh, yeah. I
female,
fired
male.
female doctors and male doctors.
Yep, it's a fit. Are they in alignment with
Mhm.
you?
Right.
Folks, we are chatting with the amazing Deb Krier, and you can learn more about her remarkable work and how she has turned her cancer story, into her purpose and her passion. And you can learn more at her website, tryingnottoDie.live. I'll have all
Yipper.
those links in the show notes. How did you come up with that for the name? Tell us a little bit
So
about that.
initially, the trying not to die part came from an interaction with my mother. So a little bit further in the story, finally got an oncologist. She said, "Oh my gosh, we need to throw the book at this." So I had chemo, 8 different drugs in one day. And yeah, yikes.
Ooh, they went into brought in the
They
big
did. We
guns.
went into the big guns and they literally about killed me. I got a complication that happens less than 1% of the time because
Oh,
remember I said I'm
Deb.
special, and ended up in septic shock, which is almost always fatal. The
Yes.
percentage is about 75.
Oh, yeah.
But had a young surgeon who said, "I don't think we should even bother trying to do anything because she's not going to make it through the day." My oncologist got in his face and said, "That's not your call." And so, but yeah, and clearly I survived because I remember thinking, I have a vote in this. Now I was really, really sick.
Of course
And
you were.
oh yeah. And I don't remember an awful lot, but I was in the hospital for 7 weeks, in and out of ICU, in and out of the operating room. They knew my husband, my name down,
Yeah.
the little pink ladies down there, all this stuff. And so my mom, I am an only child, and my mom, of course, came out because this was catastrophic. But one of the times when somebody came in and did something and left, I got the disapproving mother face. And I went, "What?" And she said, "You did not say thank you." And I said, "Oh, for God's sakes, mom, I'm trying to not die." But then of course, when I was much better and starting to think about what did we want to call this initiative, it really dawned on me that anytime we have something serious going on, especially something long term or chronic, we get so caught up in trying to not die that we forget that we have to live.
Right.
And that actually goes with just age, right? We reach that age where we're like, I'm at the end, yada yada yada. And we don't know if we have 5 hours, 50 years,
There's
whatever it is.
there's no expiration date on your booty.
Right, right. I think my expiration date probably got moved up. But but you never know. I mean, for one thing, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow, Atlanta
Right.
traffic, yay! Or I could live forever because my final diagnosis is stage 4 triple positive metastatic breast cancer.
Holy mackerel.
Stage 4 is not considered curable. So that shadow is there.
Mm.
And I have had 2 other cancer diagnoses since the initial diagnosis. I had basal cell carcinoma, which is a skin cancer that is really easy to treat. And then I had thyroid cancer last year, which is a totally new cancer. So I've had 3 brand new diagnoses. But I just keep ignoring those and going merrily along
Well, and
because I'm not going to die. I'm going to live.
that's right. And you may remember, listeners, on episode 24 when we were chatting with Tammy Barber.
Mhm. Yes, yes.
Same thing. Tammy?
No, but I listened to just a little bit of your podcast with her.
So,
Such
yeah,
fun.
same thing. Diagnosed
Mhm,
and has had 75 treatments so far. And
mhm,
she takes breaks so she can go and do events and fun
mhm.
things. But
Right,
then she goes back
mhm,
in because
right,
nothing is curing it
right,
and nothing is working, but she's not going to stop living. And these are
right.
the examples you,
Mhm,
Deb, yeah, the example we need to just carpe diem,
mhm, mhm.
right?
Right,
And
right.
but the thing too, and our wonderful Tammy talked a lot about this as well, which is the I'm fine syndrome.
Mhm. I told
When
you, that's a 4-letter word.
that's
Mhm.
right. Talk a little bit about how we navigate the I'm not fine, but that's okay narrative.
Right, right. It is the word that we always use. "Andy, how are you doing today?" "I'm fine." And, more importantly, the doctor says, "Deb, how are you doing today?" "I'm fine." And we use that word when we could be ready to run a marathon or ready to keel over, right? It's just, I'm fine. And it's habit. It's the easy thing to do. We don't want to bother people. We don't want to whine, all of those various things. But how can people help us if we're not honest with them? And so at the start, I said I'm hunky dory, and my doctors and all my medical care team knows if I don't say I'm hunky dory, there is an issue. Now, I am pretty good about going whiny, whiny, but and I shouldn't say that. I
And
should
yeah,
say
we
I'm
don't want to
very
frame it as
yes.
wine. It's
I'm
just
being good with
barometer
being
check.
honest. Today's not a good day. I've got this pain. I'm really tired. Whatever it is, and whether it's your medical people, your family, your caregivers, your friends, they can't help if we're not honest. And so we have got to get rid of that word fine. It's okay to tell the young lady who serves us our coffee at Starbucks, I'm fine. But I even tell them hunky dory. And then I
Well, I,
say,
I use the word delicious, right, listeners?
oh my gosh. I love
Oh, delicious.
that.
No, because you're right. And I know, listeners, you're probably thinking about this too, that word fine. It can
Mhm,
shake people off. You don't want to
mhm,
get into it
mhm.
sometimes.
Right.
I got this headache. I've got this ache, whatever's going on, or I'm scared.
Mhm,
I'm
mhm,
just plain scared because I'm
right.
not feeling well. And when we're
Mhm,
not feeling well,
mhm,
our ability to tap
mhm,
into courage
mhm,
can be a little
mhm.
challenging, right?
Right, it is. And there are other words that I use, okay, good.
Hmm.
And those are actually I'm not quite there. Oh, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And and part of that then allows whoever I have said that to, if they're comfortable asking more, right? Because they might not want to know. But and that's fine. That really is fine. That's a good place to use that word. But they might want to say, "Hey, what can we do?" So, I'm okay. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's and it is the tone, right? I'm
Right.
okay.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. You can you can have a look too for
Mhm,
that.
mhm,
But talk about because we need to know. You have obviously been through enough doctors and through enough surgeries and diagnoses, et cetera, that you are the master, the
mhm,
goddess of your ship.
mhm,
And as a result, you have figured out how to manage these employees,
mhm,
this
mhm.
team of
Right.
doctors.
Mhm.
So help us by sharing the 5 questions to ask your doctor to help you, the patient, prepare for the fight ahead because it is a strategy that you need to implement. It's wartime.
Right, right. And so one of the things that I tell people, and I might not do the 5 questions that we were ready to talk about because they always just kind of come to me as I do it. We are in charge, right? And so ask those questions that are the really scary questions. What is my prognosis? What are alternatives? And it's okay to not do the traditional approach. I mean, I did do chemo, surgery, radiation.
Yeah.
But there are so many people that choose something different or a combination of.
Right.
We need to do that. So there are those things where we have to ask those questions and ask them of yourself. What am I wanting to do? And my husband, he said, whatever you want to do, we do. And so that was good. But it is we want to know that our doctor is our partner in this. I have the word warrior tattooed on my arm. Warrior is the theme of our website. And that's because somebody told me they sent me this thing that said, the fate says to the warrior, you cannot withstand the storm. The warrior responds, I am the storm. But we all know that the really important thing is we have to have our tribe. And our medical team is part of that tribe. And so you have to have the right ones. So you want to know from your doctor, and I did just find my 5 questions that we would have sent you. So we'll get those specific. What type and stage of cancer do I have? Now, folks, I joked at the start about Dr. Google. Step away from your keyboard.
Yeah.
Dr. Google is just going to scare you half to death. You need to rely on reliable sources of information, but you need to get this information from your doctor. So then, when you do more research, what are my treatment options? What are the options that I have? What are the side effects, right? They don't always talk about it. And it's not just what's going to happen right away. And now, granted, nobody was going to tell me that I was going to end up in septic shock. I
Yeah.
mean, that was because that's one of those tiny little things. Or
Quirky.
like on the commercials that we see on TV, side effect could include death. Okay, it really always can with pretty much anything. I mean,
Yeah.
you could have some weird reaction. But yeah, so what are the side effects and what are the long-term side effects? One of the drugs that I take is a and I'm still on it, is a drug called letrozole. its side effect that almost always happens because and so it's kind of one of those bigger ones is bone pain. And it's really weird because it's your hips and your back. So then it caused that other little thing that those of us of a certain age have to worry about, osteoporosis. And so I do take an injection of Prolia every 6 months when and they've given me exercises, all of those things that we all, once we hit that we should be doing anyway, right? Whether we
Right.
have osteoporosis or anything. But then what is the outcome in the prognosis? What do they think is going to happen? Because if they're going to tell me we're going to do all this stuff and you is still going to die, I mean, not just, we're all going to die,
Right, but we're
right?
still looking at maybe giving
Right.
you another month or 2,
Yeah,
and you'll be in
and
pain and
okay, I might say, "I'm not gonna do all of that.
yeah,
I'm just gonna go off on my little boat and find an island." And then depending on what it is, are there clinical trials? Are there
right.
other things that I should be considering? There's a lot now of the additional things. The what we often or medical people would refer to as Eastern medicine, right? Western medicine is the surgery, the chemo, all of that. What about yoga, meditation, nutrition? Hello. Nutrition is one of the
Acupuncture.
most yeah, all of those things. So make sure and again, if your doctor is not answering these questions the way that you want them answered, and I use doctor in general, right? I love
Right.
my nurse practitioners, I love my physician's assistants. They're all kind of in this. If they're not answering the questions in the way you want them answered, you either keep at it or you find a different doctor.
That's right. Pretend you're a detective
Mhm,
trying to
mhm.
get to the bottom of something. You treat
Right.
people
Mhm,
like
mhm,
because this is your life, this is your body, you deserve
mhm,
answers, and if
mhm,
they can't answer it, they need to be telling you where you
mhm,
can find an
mhm.
answer or having a
Right.
conversation or even saying themselves,
Mhm,
"Let me do some
mhm,
research
mhm. Right.
among my colleagues."
Mhm,
And that's so important.
mhm,
And what happens too is that when we are hit with such a tough, life-threatening
mhm,
diagnosis, we have loved ones, right?
mhm.
In
Right.
our lives. And
Mhm,
we have to navigate that
mhm,
to be able to
mhm.
A with boundaries, but
Right.
also
Mhm,
directions
mhm,
and
mhm.
make sure they're not going alone. You'll remember episode 18 with Deborah Greenhut. We talked about how to take care of the caregiver.
Oh my
Uh,
god, caregivers are our superheroes.
that's right. And so, talk a little bit about managing the fears that not only
Mhm,
you have, but
mhm.
your loved ones have, because now they're faced with perhaps losing you
Right,
as well.
right. First, remember, recognize that they have those, and it is tough because we don't feel good. We might be really, really, really sick,
Yeah.
and I honestly cannot even envision what my husband went through. I mean, because he was told 3 times that I wasn't gonna make it. And I mean, how do they deal with that? And then he got to deal with my mother, who obviously was very scared, but and her way to cope is to take charge.
Right.
And so they had to have some discussions and she was not in charge. She
Well,
came
not
to yeah,
yeah, she was
and that
dealing with the memo she got
Mhm.
about what
Yeah,
her
her
role
memo
should
is,
have
"I'm
been.
mom, I'm always mom," right?
Yeah.
And but his memo was he's in charge. And so that is one of the things that especially when we reach this age, folks, we need wills, we need medical powers of attorney, we need all of those things. We just need them done.
Yeah.
But we also need to have talked with people about it. What are our wishes? Do we have a DNR? All of those various things.
Do not resuscitate everybody,
Yes.
DNR.
Yes. If something goes really, really, really bad, do you want to be intubated, shocked, all of that stuff? Or do you just want them to say blessings? And so now, just because that's what we want, it doesn't always mean that's what's going to be followed, but they're not mind readers. I mean, when just because we check that little box for on our driver's license that says we want to donate our organs, doesn't mean they're going to follow that either. But but yeah, and I joke that my mother made the face that I didn't say thank you. Please, 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 please say thank you to your caregivers all the time. And I think we kind of get in this, well, they're gonna help us because they're our whatever. They probably will, but that still doesn't mean that we don't need to show our gratitude.
Absolutely. They're special people, that's for sure. They were made to
Mhm,
be the caregivers.
mhm,
And also let's talk a little bit about mindset. I mean, on episode 28, we talked to Frank King, who is a suicide prevention, who was born with
mhm.
depression and
Oh my god.
suicidality
Mhm,
as part of
mhm,
his genetic makeup. and he's a mental health comedian. He
Mhm.
brings a lot of humor, and even though I felt badly laughing about some of his,
Mhm.
comments, that's how he puts it out.
Right.
How can folks switch off the doom and gloom and find humor and focus and living and not dying? I mean, you
Mhm.
clearly I've laughed out loud several times with you and some of the wonderful comments you've made. Talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that.
First of all, doom and gloom and anger and all that are natural. They
Yes.
are part of this process, and we need to acknowledge that and honor the times when we're whiny, when we're tired, when we're mad at the world. When they called to tell me that I had my third cancer, when the cell phone ID shows your doctor, it's like, oh, that's not good. And she told me it's papillary thyroid cancer. I said words that we can't say, and she laughed and she said, yeah, that's why you'll be just fine. But it is okay to do that, to have those pity parties. You just don't wanna get stuck there.
That's
Um,
right.
now I really think that humor is very important in this process, and there's actually physiological reasons for it. It increases the endorphins, it helps with pain, it helps get your mind sidetracked, all of these various things. And so how can you do maybe it means you sit and watch I Love Lucy or whatever. Uh,
Whatever makes you laugh.
I know, and but my goal is also, can I make my caregivers laugh? For those of you who are listening, as opposed to watching, I have a button-down shirt on. This is my chemo outfit because guess where I'm going when I'm done? Yeah, see, look, buttons, yay. And because I have a port in my shoulder, and so the buttons are so we can easily get to the port in my shoulder, because they will access it later today, and I will have a treatment because and now I'm not taking chemo, I'm taking a different drug, but I've been doing this now for 8 years, but when they say, "Now what is your name and date of birth?" I look at them and I say, "Anastasia Beaverhausen." Now, I don't do that to new people because it really throws them, right? And when they're like, "Oh, we gotta have the wrong chart." No, 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 that's okay. But yeah, so it's Anastasia Beaverhausen, and I go in every 21 days. So this is just this clockwork thing that I do. And like you mentioned with your other guests, so I can kind of tweak the dates a little bit. I can't go sooner, but
Right.
I can go a little bit later. And so, but yeah, so they in the infusion room, they obviously know me very well because I've been there longer than any of them have. And they have decided it's not Anastasia Beaverhausen. It's Princess Anastasia Beaverhausen. And I had my 34th surgical procedure in July. And so I, of course, had told them, my name is Anastasia Beaverhausen. And then they said, no, it's gotta be Princess. I mean, they just immediately figured me out and those things. And so when they're taking you from the prep room to the surgical area, you're in the bed and you're going down the hall and all this stuff. And so what do I do? The princess way,
That's
right?
right.
And
The
I
royal
and
wave.
the funny thing was how many people waved back. And you could see they were a little perplexed, but they all waved. I mean, it's like when a 3-year-old hands you a phone and says, "Talk," you do, right? Somebody you wave back.
Deb, you are a kindred spirit. I'm the same way. I just love to bring humor to
Mhm.
the situation that it is almost situation comedy sometimes when you're in the hospital and all that
Yeah.
is going
Mhm.
down. Now, you are a cancer thriver. You are
Yes.
continuing to work and
Mhm.
feeling on purpose. How does one do that when at the same time, every 21 days, you're dealing with
Mhm.
cancer?
Right. Yeah, I tell people hospitals and doctors' offices have really good Wi-Fi, and they do, right? And I mean, there have been times where I've been in the hospital and my clients never knew because I just kept working merrily along. I will sit today in the infusion room and work. I mean, that's just I'll have my phone because it's not real. My treatment's 30 minutes. Takes me
Yeah.
longer to get there. And but I will sit there and work. But I think it's so important that we need that choice if we want to continue working because some people actually might really need it. They might need the insurance, they might need that paycheck. I'm
And the
very fortunate.
distraction.
Right. Yes, the distraction is the big thing. I can make my brain think about something else. And I'm very fortunate. I do have my own company. It is a marketing and PR firm. My clients, I chose to tell them. Some people choose not to because they're really afraid of what the reaction will be.
Right.
Because sometimes the reaction is no. Sometimes the reaction is we want you to focus on getting better, so we'll find somebody else. My client's reaction was, what can we do to help? And so they all know that every 21 days, there's going to be about a 48-hour time period where I won't respond as quickly as I normally do. And they're all my Facebook friends. And I, of course, I'm one of those wide open people. And so I post about it. So they all know, "Oop, she's at the oncologist today."
Where are you on Facebook?
So it's real easy to find me on Facebook, just Deb Krier, Deb.Krier, I believe is what it
And that's
is.
K-R-E-E-R, everyone.
Krier.
I'm sorry, K
Yep, yep. So, yes, we were talking
K-R-I-E-R.
phonetic, right? Krier. And but on the Try Not to Die .live website, you will find a link to our private Facebook group. And I encourage anybody, whether they are on this journey or not, to go there and become part of our group. We really try and keep it fun. We try and keep it inspirational. But the goal is support. How
Yeah,
can we support each other? And so it is a private group. So there's a couple of questions you might have to answer. But that's only to keep out the people who are going to cure us because we've
that's
had those. It's always entertaining. I'm going to sell you this protein drink that will cure your cancer. I'm like,
and
I
you
don't
will
think so.
yeah, I listen, we'd like to believe in magic as in the song, "Do you believe in
Yeah.
magic?"
Uh-huh.
But not in that
Not going
kind
to
of
happen.
magic. But this is so important because you are about living.
Mhm,
And so many of us who are feeling fine right now, and we're seeing folks who are getting the cancer, and we might be
mhm,
the caregiver, we may be having those thoughts, fight or flight ourselves,
mhm,
just
mhm.
in empathy for
Right.
others. So how can this mindset translate into strategies for
Mhm,
rewiring so that we don't just curl up on a couch and say, "Why bother? I'm gonna
mhm,
die anyway,"
mhm.
and continue to be thriving after 65. What advice do you have for folks to help them from being caged by
Yeah.
their age?
Again, recognize that we're gonna have that fear. And unfortunately, when you start reaching our age, that is when we see so many of our friends, our peers who start having all these diagnoses. A friend of mine earlier this week called and said, "I have Parkinson's."
Mm,
And it was like, "Oh my god," I was totally now it was not unexpected. I had seen the symptoms in her, but then my next thing was, "What do you need me to do?" Now, that was I tell people, "Be more specific," because if I say, "Andy, just tell me if there's anything you need," your brain goes, "Z," right? Because you're thinking about other
right.
things. And so be specific. "Andy, can I bring you and your family dinner on Thursday?" Maybe you have children, grandchildren that you're a caregiver of. "Can I take them to a movie?" Because the specifics my brain can grasp, and then I can say, "Oh, Thursday doesn't work, but Saturday's good." And so
And there's
do
also, Deb, there's this wonderful platform called
yes.
Iona Care.
Oh, there's so many there's actually
They help
several that
yeah,
yeah,
they help you set up the whole
neural
caregiver.
trainings. Yeah, all sorts of things. Because we as the tribe members or even just the people who are looking on, we're thinking, "Oh, I don't wanna make her feel bad by asking." So what happens is I don't ask. And then I think, "They didn't love me," right? And so acknowledge it. There's that big elephant that's in the
Right.
room.
That's
It's okay to say, "Andy, I feel really bad for you, and I am so sorry." And then you go on, right? Then you have the opportunity to take it in whatever direction you want. If you just want to say thanks or what I had people who said, "We didn't know what to say." And I tell them, "Hallmark has cards." And whether they're serious, whether they're funny, I still have every card that was sent to me. People sent me gifts, which I just thought the world of. I still have all of them.
and on your website, you have a
Right.
wonderful gift that
Right.
people can do.
We have this I'm gonna reach behind me for the people who are watching. Look at this bear. Isn't this just the cutest bear in the world? And of course, the bear is named Warrior. And the concept is that we you can send someone a bear hug care package. And so you might be a block from where they are. You might be halfway across the world. We sent one to Germany several weeks ago. And so you get this delightful, lovable, cuttable, is that a word? Cuttable, whatever
It
that was.
can be
That's what I'm trying to
cuddleable.
say. And there's several other things in the care package, but it is something where you can send this bear hug to
Right.
people so that they know they're not alone. That really is the thing. I had several people who sent me several stuffed animals when I was in the hospital, and those little buggers went everywhere with me. They went to my every place I went in the hospital. I'm surprised they got back with me. But I knew that people were thinking of me.
Right.
And that is the most important thing. Again, how do you build that tribe?
Right.
Because people really do want to help. They do want to know what's going on. They just don't know how to do it.
Right.
And it's okay. It really is okay to tell them, "I'm good. I'm fine." But it's also okay to say, "I really need somebody to go to the grocery store for me." Or I had people come walk me. It was the funniest thing.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I had been in the hospital for a very long time, and they said, "You need to get out, you need to get fresh air, you need to get sunshine, you need to get exercise." Well, I was having to use a walker, right?
Right.
I was in my 50s having to use a walker, but I knew I could not go alone because
Right.
I go FUD, right? So I put a post on Facebook because my husband had to go back to work and my mom had gone home. And so I said, "I need people to come walk me 15 to 20 minutes a day, leash provided," right? Because I have to be funny with it, right? And so I had people who, and that gave the people who were here in this area something that they could do. And we had great conversations. Sometimes we didn't even go for the walk. We just all these various things.
Oh, Deb.
But yeah, it's a way to give people something that they can focus on.
Oh, I love that. And listeners, you've got to go to tryingnottoDie.live, Live, and see Deb Krier, Krier, and all the wonderful things she's doing, taking this diagnosis and all the frightening things that happened to her and turning it into a way to help you navigate whatever diagnosis that you have, and that you're not alone, that there are folks out there that have been through similar experiences, and those are the best folks to turn to. Your loved ones can, certainly give you tons of love, but unless someone's been on the journey themselves and had a diagnosis, especially a cancer diagnosis, it's really hard for them to understand as much as you would learn from Deb's Facebook group and her tribe. Deb, how can folks work with you, stay in touch with you? Give us all the details.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much. This has been a great discussion. I can't wait to chat with you in the future because we obviously are sisters from another mother. And so
Understand.
we will have those things. But the easy thing is go to, so it's the website is www.tryingnottodie.live, Live. And there you will find, if you want to chat with me, there's various ways that you can do that. I've got my Zoom links there, all sorts of things. But there is the link to the private Facebook group. There's information there. We do try and provide resources. One of the things that we have links to is maybe you're far enough away and you want to do food. We've got Instead of Flowers, a link with insteadofflowers.com, and they're a meal program that you can sign
Ah,
people up for. So it's a
so
great
good.
thing, like with a work, an office. Everybody can chip in and you get the person a gift card, right? Because you might
Right.
not know exactly what they want, or things might have changed with what they can eat during treatments. And there's multiple other links there. We're always adding resources. We've got a blog post on there, or a blog where people are usually me, but we have had guest posters talking about all of these issues and love
Right.
to get people's comments, things like that.
And I
And
love
folks
I
feel,
love
yeah.
and
Mhm,
I love this one specific under your resources, which is
mhm,
click here to receive 5 tips to
mhm.
support an employee with
Right,
cancer.
right.
I mean,
Right.
colleagues
Mhm,
coming
mhm.
down, somebody on your
Right.
team at work, it's
Mhm.
so hard.
Well, and there's federal and state laws that
Yeah.
get all tangled up in this, right? There's
Ooh,
Disabilities Act, things like that. If an employee is going through this, whether themselves or their family, they don't have to say a word. And they might not, because they might think they're going to lose their job.
sure.
Or they might tell their manager, their HR person, their whoever, and then say, "But you can't tell anyone." And they can't. They cannot. And so you've got these people who are working with this person, not knowing what's going on and thinking, "Well, how come Andy gets to leave at 3 o'clock every day?" And so how do you do that? But there's a lot of different ways to deal with the workplace but it is a challenge, right?
Yeah, it
And
really
mhm,
is.
mhm,
Oh my gosh, Deb, thank you for coming on Don't Be Caged by Your Age and sharing your brilliance, your humor, your joie de vivre. I mean, you clearly are navigating, scary times, challenging times with a deep understanding of living, even in the face of some pretty tough diagnoses. Is wonderful representation. And I know it will help so many listeners understand how you got there. You have a deep honesty for the journey, for being human, right?
mhm.
Throughout all of this. All your feelings are valid, listeners. Deb has said that time and time again. You've shown us how to be advocates for our medical help and team, getting the right people into place. And you are a resource. You have taken this challenge and you've turned it into a platform so others can have a good experience during a tough time.
Again, thank you so much, and I look forward to the next time we chat.
I can't wait. And listeners, this is where you need to always remember you have so much to give, even if you are battling a life threatening diagnosis and prognosis. So do not let those internalized ageist beliefs prevent you from still pursuing new dreams and opportunities, whatever that looks like for you, for whatever it is that you're going through. And I'm so thrilled you all tuned in. And I'm so happy Deb was here to share her deliciousness. And until next time, I'm wishing you a delicious day everywhere you glow. Cheers from Boston, everyone. Listeners, I'm so grateful you carved out time to tune in and grab the gems from this delicious conversation. Be sure to hop on over to Don't Be Caged by Your Age on LinkedIn or Instagram to share your thoughts about ageism and unretirement. Because in this space, your age doesn't define you, it refines you. If you are inspired by a story you hear, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, share, rate, and review the podcast. To receive an alert whenever a new show is posted, please join the Don't Be Caged by Your Age newsletter. Every month, you'll receive links to the podcast and helpful resources for creating possibilities for your unretirement days. Thank you for tuning in. I am so excited to hear how you found ways to thrive after 65. Waving from Boston, cheers.